Hi, this is Crystal Cyrus from the OOTW podcast, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 160, The Rock Movie Review. I'm Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. You can reach us on Twitter at Amaron_DM and at CMcBrien, and popgoesyourworld.com is our website with all of our contact information. Derek, what is new in the world of pop culture for you?
Hey, Chris. Not a whole lot. I've had a lot of stuff going on this week, just between work stuff and personal stuff. Haven't had a lot of free time to sit and consume pop culture that much. The only thing I did have a chance to do was, I think I mentioned on last week's show, I had started watching the Netflix series The Queen's Gambit.
Yes, you mentioned that.
And
that's correct.
I think I had 1 or 2 episodes to go when we recorded last week. So I immediately watched those after we recorded our show. It was great. The miniseries itself was quite strong, and the last couple episodes were really good. I was very happy with the ending. That's always my risk with a movie or more so with like a miniseries. You get towards the end of it and you're sort of thinking, how are they going to wrap this up? And in many cases, you get either an unsatisfying ending where they don't wrap up loose ends, maybe in part because they're hoping to get renewed and they think, oh, we need to leave some sort of a cliffhanger. But too often it's just because the writing is bad. But with this one, it was really good. It's not the kind of thing that you would want to have a sequel for. It's not like Game of Thrones where it's this long, sprawling epic. It's a very self-contained story. I believe it was 7 one-hour episodes, and it's a very good story, very complete story, and it was good. I strongly recommend it for anyone who's looking for something to watch. It's short, so you could binge the whole thing in a weekend, and yeah, I was very, very pleased with the way it came together in the end. So that's really the only newish thing that I've had a chance to watch this week. How about you? What pop culture stuff is going on in your life?
Not a whole lot. As you know, I'm a pretty busy guy between work and the family and that sort of thing. But I wanted to mention a little bit about the podcast, if I could, in my time up at the front here. So last week, obviously, I debuted my new song, which was called Pop Goes Your World. Appropriately. And, I mentioned that I was going to put it up on iTunes. It's now hit over 10,000 downloads. I was going to use the money to go back into the studio and record another song, but I think I'm just going to spend it on beer.
There you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention.
I didn't know that your wife was going to download it 10,000 times, but
it was my mom. My mom.
Oh, it was your mom. 5,000 from your mom and 5,000 from your wife.
Yeah,
okay,
so
that makes a lot more sense then. Okay,
that's how that worked. I wanted to mention that me doing the song last week is not the first time that I've actually written a song and sang a song and debuted a song on a podcast. Before I did this podcast, as most people know, I think I used to do a podcast on fantasy baseball. It was called Dear Mr. Fantasy. And I got together with a bunch of guys from the industry. It was like Justin Mason. You know Justin Mason, our good buddy.
I do. He's been on our show a couple of times.
Yeah, he has. So, him and Scott Bogman and Chris Welsh and Joe Pisapia, Mike Werner and Adam Newman. We all got together and we had this contest called Mr. Podcast. And what it was we all had to do a talent. We had to answer a bunch of questions and we had to do a talent section. And for my talent section, I actually sang a song. And this week, because I did the song last week, I went back into the archives and I was like digging everywhere to see if I could find the song that I did back on their show. It was on Friends with Fantasy Benefits was the name of their show. And lo and behold, as luck would have it, I found it. So I thought I would play it for everybody so they would just see the first time that I actually did a song on a podcast. So Derek, are you ready to listen to this?
I don't know, man. This is now 3 weeks in a row. I don't know if my ears can take it. But when you said you did like a contest and you had a talent component, I was a little worried you were going to say you did the swimsuit competition and you were going to post pictures. So if that's the alternative, I think I'll take the song.
You'll take it. Now, the thing is, the audio that I have, and I'm going to play for everyone and yourself included in just a minute, there's a bit of a setup in it. So like it's me setting it up and talking about what I'm going to sing, and then it's me unleashing the song. So are you ready?
Is this going to take 20 minutes or is this like a nice short clip?
Oh, it's like 2 minutes long.
Okay. I'll give you 2 minutes.
All right.
I think you've earned it. I think your track record is even Steven right now. Mm-hmm. One not so great, one really great. And so let's see. This will be the tiebreaker.
Then we'll see how the tiebreaker goes. All right. So here it is. This is back from 2015 from the Mr. Podcast competition. And it's me singing my song. Here we go. Exactly. And the thing is, because how do I explain this to you? I'm really white. So, what? So I thought I'd rap for everybody. But you know what I thought is, if anyone that listens to the show, you know how much that I love Peter Dinklage. But, with the whole Dinklage thing we got going on.
We do know that.
So I thought maybe it would be a good idea if I rapped while I also was doing an impression of Peter Dinklage.
This has classic written all over it. I'm telling you, Chris.
BIGPOPPA, no info for the DEA. Federal agents mad cause I'm flagrant. Tap my cell and my phone in the basement. My team supreme, stay clean. Triple beam, lyrical dream, I be that.
Was that you?
Catch you see at all events. Gats in holsters, girls on shoulders. Playboy, I told you be a mice to me. Cruise too much, or lose too much. Step on stage, the girls boo too much. I guess it's cause I run with lame dudes too much. Me lose my touch, never that. It ain't a problem to get the gat where the two players at. Throw your rollies in the sky, waving side to side. And put your hands high while I give the girls the eye. Player please, lyrically, midget C, BIGB, flossy and jig on the cover of Fortune. 500, here's my phone number. Your man ain't got to know. I got the dough, I got the flow down. Plizzat, plat, plus like Plizzat, dangerous like Trizzat. Leave your ass, Plizzat. Yo, yo.
Yes!
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That was impressive.
Why
I've dropped
does he have
the mic
such a
and walking
high-
off the stage.
Holy shit, man.
Why does he have such a high-pitched voice? Is what
You
I
can
like
hear him
to-
stopping to suck the helium in, right?
That was my favorite part about that entire rap was those nice awkward 2-second pauses between it. It really let us build into it.
I didn't catch that was why you were pausing in the song, that you were inhaling the helium. I just thought it was.
How do you think I got my voice so high? What's
I
that?
don't know. You got technical tools. I figured maybe you were doing like some sort of weird effect on your voice. But
No,
I know how much you love practical effects, so I should have clued in that it was a practical effect.
I got one of those big foil balloons, with like the thing that goes in it, and I got a straw and I stuck it in, and then I just inhaled the helium, and then I would like rap a verse, and then my voice would start coming back, so I'd have to suck some more helium and go again, and then that's where it was Bogman there. That was Bogman calling me out. So it was.
Oh man, I'm just impressed that you were able to do the whole thing live. Like, it didn't sound to me like it was a bit that was pre-recorded.
No,
like
it was
you obviously
live.
did that sort of on the air when the mic was hot.
Yep.
So I got to tip my hat to you, because that was. As bad as it was still pretty good.
Yeah, it was just, me being goofy. But, and speaking of me being goofy.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
All right, Derek, I got 2 for you this week. A dad joke and then one that's kind of dirty.
Okay.
Okay, so my dad joke. Derek, what do sea monsters eat for lunch?
I have no idea.
Fish and chips.
If that was the dirty one, I had a better answer for you.
No, I have another joke. And I figured since we're reviewing The Rock this week, and since it's about Alcatraz, I thought I'd tell a prison joke.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Except it's R-rated.
Oh my God. Okay.
Let's
hear it.
It's not a one-liner though. It's like one of like a story joke. You know what I mean?
We try and keep these shows under an hour. Is this gonna?
Nah, it won't be long. Okay, so there's this nerdy little guy that worked at a bank, and he embezzled money, and he got caught, and he went to jail. And when he gets there, his cellmate is this huge, mean biker guy, like with tattoos and scars. And this big guy says to him, "You and me, we're going to play a little game called House. You can be the mama or you can be the papa. And the guy's like all scared. He's like, well, if those are my choices, I guess I'll be the papa. And the big guy says, okay, now get over here and
Jeez. Great, man. Wow.
Is that a pledge pin on your uniform?
Doctor.
Doctor. Detroit. Oh, yes, the Haile Selassie Pavilion. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Whiskey.
Fun prophylactic, soiled.
Now bring him home.
You're my friend. I'm going to try and help you.
Randy Jackson from the Jackson 5.
Really?
In Philadelphia, it's worth $50. Stop. Look at that escargot. Okay, so it was over to you this week, Derek, and we, as part of our Sean Connery appreciation, we did our top 5 Sean Connery performances that we liked, and then we followed that up with me picking a Sean Connery movie, and last week I did Time Bandits from 1981, and then it was over to you, and you picked The Rock from 1996. So of all the Sean Connery movies you could pick, all the James Bond ones, you chose this one. Maybe you could just start us off with a little synopsis of just why you picked this one.
Sure. So, of all of Sean Connery's movies, the two that I have seen the most by a long shot are Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where he plays Henry Jones Sr.,
right,
and this one, The Rock. And I honestly couldn't tell you which of the two I've seen more often, which should say something about how many times I've seen this movie, because that Indiana Jones movie I've seen a ton.
And he was he was Henry Jones Sr.? Does that mean Indiana Jones is
He was name? Indiana Jones' father, yes.
But he wasn't Henry Jr., Indiana.
Well, he was. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast.
Okay.
Yes. So The Rock for me is one of those movies that I remember seeing in the theater. I really enjoyed it when it came out. I bought it on Laserdisc as my first medium on which I owned this movie. And then eventually I also purchased it on DVD. They put out a special Criterion Collection 2-disc set with all the special features and bonus stuff. I'm a real sucker when it comes to like the Criterion super special editions of stuff. I love, if it's a movie I like, I want all the extras. I love an audio commentary. I love bloopers. I love how behind the scenes featurettes of how you do some of the special effects, all that stuff. And more nowadays, that stuff just comes standard on your typical Blu-ray release. But back in the day, a lot of DVDs came out where you could either buy just the DVD, but had the movie. That was it. And it was maybe $15 to $20, or you could buy the super duper special deluxe version, which had all those extra features, which usually was like maybe around $30. And then from time to time, you would get something like the Criterion Collection, which is like it's a special brand of films that is designed for like the movie lover's lover, and they have only certain movies get Criterion treatment. I actually have a ton of them in my collection, and they don't pull any stops with Criterion. It's absolutely everything you could ever want to know about a movie in any way, shape, or form, and they jam it in there on the special features. So I was actually kind of glad that I had that Criterion collection, which I honestly forgot about, because when I went to fire up my Laserdisc player this week to watch The Rock, the Laserdisc player stopped working. And seeing that it's a technology that's 30 years old, I think I'm going to have a little bit of a problem getting parts. So I was then scrambling to see if The Rock was available on Netflix, and it was not.
No, it's not.
And then my wife turned to me and said, I'm sure you've got this on DVD. And sure enough, that's when I found the Criterion edition. I'm like, I totally forgot I owned this. So I was able to finally watch it again on DVD. But so anyway, yeah, the main reason I wanted to watch that I'd suggested this one is I wasn't sure if you had seen it before. I think you had mentioned you saw it once, maybe in the theater, but you weren't that familiar with all of it. And it had been a long time since you had seen it. And I know we had talked about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Another one which you said you had not seen all that many times, but
just once.
The Rock to me was a little more fun, and this one has Sean Connery in more of a starring role. I felt with the Indiana Jones movie, he's definitely the star, but he's the number 2 behind Harrison Ford. Like, Indiana Jones is a Harrison Ford movie that Sean Connery is in a very strong supporting role. But like, you don't get Sean Connery in the Indiana Jones movie till like halfway through. Whereas with The Rock, you don't get Sean Connery until about 40 minutes in, but once he's in, he's the main guy. Like, he's in every scene after that, even though Nicolas Cage, I gotta think Nick Cage had top billing, but the two of them have pretty much equal screen time. I'll bet if you went and actually looked it up. So I wanted to do this one because it felt more like it was a Sean Connery vehicle. And I didn't want to go all the way back to James Bond, partly because, as we previously discussed, Sean Connery wasn't my favorite Bond. But this to me was, and I brought this up when we talked about our Sean Connery list back, a couple episodes ago. This to me was like, well, what if James Bond was still working into his 50s or 60s? I'm not sure how old Sean Connery is supposed to be in this movie, but was still skilled enough to do what he needed to do. And that's to me what this was. This, again, they don't, obviously his character's name is John Mason, not James Bond, but they do talk about how he's, British SIS, and he was a spy, and he worked in the 60s, and he's obviously pretty crafty. So, they don't come right out and say he's supposed to be his James Bond character. But if you sort of go in thinking that, you're not going to be disappointed. He does all the stuff in this movie that James Bond does in all the other movies. He gets to be in a helicopter. He gets to be underwater. He gets to shoot guns. He gets to go, he gets to show his ingenuity by using everyday objects in strange ways. He gets to use some tech. He gets to, he gets to do all the things that you would expect a James Bond character to do, but in the context of this movie. So I thought, you know what? I love this movie. It's a lot of fun. It's a turn your brain off and just enjoy it. Eat your popcorn, watch the movie, have a good time. Explosions everywhere. I mean, we'll have a whole conversation about Michael Bay, I'm sure, as we go through this. Michael Bay knows how to make an entertaining movie, and in my mind, this is a very entertaining movie. So I thought, you know what? Let's go back and revisit it. If you like it, great. If you don't, hey, I got to watch a 2-hour Sean Connery movie this week that I knew I was going to enjoy. So it's a win-win for me. Anyway, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, a couple things just to build on what you were just saying. So I would say Sean Connery would have been 64, 65 years old when he shot this, because he died in 2020. He was 90, and this came out in 96. As you pointed out, I mentioned last week that I thought, when you mentioned this, I thought I saw this in the theater. But then when I watched it this week, I didn't. I'd never seen this movie before. I don't know why.
Oh, really?
For some reason, I thought like, well, I think I saw that in the theater for whatever reason when you mentioned it. But no, I'd never seen it before. So it is what it is, and it was quite enjoyable.
Good.
It was an enjoyable film. Like, it is what it is. It's one of those kind of big Hollywood splash movies with, lots of explosions and all this going on. So it was quite enjoyable. So Nick Cage, I want to talk about first of all, because you mentioned him. I saw somewhere recently, I want to say it was on Twitter, but somebody had said something like, if you ever met anyone even remotely like one of Nick Cage's characters that he plays in his movies, you'd be talking about that guy for years. And it's true. Yeah. Nick Cage is a weirdo. He is a weird guy. But I will say that I think some of his movies are quite entertaining. But don't get me wrong, he's made some absolutely horrific films too.
Yeah.
But a few have been entertaining, but I think for the most part, I think a lot of them are kind of forgettable. And for me, this movie kind of falls into that category. Like, it was very entertaining, but it felt a little bit like empty entertainment. The Rock is the movie equivalent of Chinese food. It's like an hour later and like you're still hungry. It was entertaining. I enjoyed myself, but there wasn't a whole lot of substance to it. But that's kind of what Michael Bay is.
Though, did you expect that?
No.
And that was why I tried to really set that expectation going in. So to lean on that Nicolas Cage thing, it's like the movie Con Air. You ever seen that one?
No.
So I don't think that one's nearly as good as The Rock, but it is also entertaining. And again, the Nicolas Cage part is it's okay, but it's another one where it's just they shoot him up and explosions, and they're on a stolen plane full of criminals, and it's another one that's just a while. And the movie, that one ends with them crashing the plane on the Vegas Strip. Like, it's a giant spectacle, but it's exactly like you're saying. It's this one where you have fun while you watch it, and then 20 minutes later you're like, what did I just watch? Like, It's not that memorable. Whereas with The Rock, I find it's at least for me, I found that over time, there's a lot of lines that I find I use from this movie just in casual reference. My wife and I, especially, we throw some of we're bad for that when it comes to The Simpsons and South Park and Family Guy and Pulp Fiction and Star Wars. There's just some lines in some movies. If you've seen the movie often enough, certain lines start to enter your everyday vernacular. There's a few lines from The Rock that we actually use a fair amount. So it's always fun for me going back to watch it and go, oh yeah, that's the context of how that line really worked. So in any case, so give us a little bit more about sort of your experience.
Well, just on Nick Cage again for a second, because you know, what was that movie he did? I want to say it was called National Treasure. Is that right?
Part 1 and Part 2.
Okay, I haven't seen the Part 2, but I remember the Part 1 because it came out. I remember when the Da Vinci Code, the book, came out, and it was like the biggest thing everybody read. I read it too, loved the book. Yeah, and then when National Treasure came out, it was basically a ripoff of the Da Vinci Code. It was like trying to find it. But the thing was, then they made a movie version of the Da Vinci Code, and it sucked. It was horrible. And the Nick Cage movie was better than the Da Vinci Code movie was, you know, for the genre. But this movie here was interesting because, you know, it's a big splashy action movie, but there's some actors in here with some pretty hefty acting chops. If you think about it, Nicolas Cage has been nominated twice for an Academy Award. He's won once. Ed Harris has been nominated.
Sorry, hang on. Let me stop there. I need to know this Oscar trivia. So I know he was nominated and won for Leaving Las Vegas. I'm going to guess his second nomination. Was he nominated for Moonstruck?
No, and that's what I thought. He was nominated for adaptation in 2003.
Oh, that's right.
Didn't win.
He was excellent in that. Yeah. Okay, that's fair. I got no bones with that nomination then.
And Ed Harris was nominated 4 times. He's never won. Starting with Apollo 13 and
Truman Show.
The Truman Show, Pollock in 2001, and The Hours in 2003.
I never would have got the Hours.
Yeah, they were all
Pollock, he was good in Pollock too, though.
Well, Pollock was the first one that he was nominated for an Best Actor. The other ones were all supporting actor. And then, of course, Sean Connery was nominated and won in '88 for The Untouchables.
The Untouchables, yeah.
But Michael Bay, the director, why does Michael Bay get to keep on making movies? You know,
his movies gross a ridiculous amount of money worldwide. I mean, in all fairness, in my opinion, the quality of his movies has gone down considerably, and I think that's in part because of some of the choices he's made. Like the first Transformers movie was interesting because it's the first time we saw live Transformers, but did we really need 4 sequels? No. I don't think so. And you know what? Recasting Marky Mark as the main guy. Hey, I like Mark Wahlberg, but he's another guy who likes to cash in a paycheck. And hey, I can't fault him for that, but man, Transformers 3, Transformers 4, Transformers 5, really? Do we need all that? Like, no. But Armageddon, it's got to be in my top 30, maybe top 40 all-time favorite movies is Armageddon. I love it. It is. If it's on TV, I'm watching it. It's so over the top. It's so ridiculous. But man, oh man, Michael Bay knows how to make a movie, and Armageddon is him at his absolute best, but he's in like his own Michael Bay category. And like The Rock is just a warm-up to say, okay, I'm going to do this movie about the Alcatraz prison, but don't worry. I'm going to come back and do one about a meteor that's going to attack the Earth, and you're going to see guys going out of space. So this is just like the appetizer. Armageddon's the main course, and you'll be getting it in a couple of years.
Yes, but to put things into song, Pearl Harbor sucked, and I love you. I don't know if you ever saw Team America. Oh,
Team
God,
America,
it was
World
so
Police.
good. Oh, so good. That's one we need to review on here sometime because that's
a lot of bleeps.
That's a newer movie, like in terms of millennial film that I actually thought was fantastic. But so this movie opens up with Ed Harris, and he's at his wife's grave, and he's saying to her, "Forgive me, I have to do something," you know, right? And then Vanessa Marcel comes in, and she's the most beautiful girl in the world because Prince wrote the song about her. The most beautiful girl in the world. I don't know if you knew that, but he wrote that song about her. So the thing is with Ed Harris, though, going back to him, he talks about how there's these special ops soldiers that died, and he wants to get money to their families, and he's trying to do the right thing. But I think bombing San Francisco with chemical warfare isn't really the answer. You know, through
the course of the movie, we sort of realize that. But yeah, at the beginning, you're sort of thinking, really?
I know it's a mindless action movie, but for me, that was a bit of a flimsy premise. The only thing I will say is that Ed Harris, also uses the script, to his best advantage. But, he at least his character wasn't completely one-dimensional. Because right at the beginning, I think he says to these kids that are there on the tour, he's like, get back to the boat, get away. So that was kind of cool, I guess. But I found it a little bit hard to believe the motivation for Harris, and especially for the men that followed him, because I just didn't feel like that was a strong enough reason for them to risk everything, killing millions of people to get, some reparations for fallen soldiers' families. I don't know.
I mean, through the course of the movie and towards the end, it becomes clearer that these soldiers are with him because they've been promised a payday. So the threat is we need money for the families of these fallen soldiers. But I guess the intent was also, and there's going to be a whole bunch left over, which we're going to keep for ourselves. Mm-hmm. They don't come right out and say that. But towards the end of the movies, the guys, the people under him even say, we stopped being soldiers and we started being mercenaries, and mercenaries get paid for what they do. So I think that's sort of the implication we're supposed to get by the end of the movie. But you're right. At the beginning, we don't have that information. So you're sort of taking it on faith that these guys are loyal to this man because they believe in his cause. They feel that he is a strong leader. At least that's my impression of what you're supposed to think at the beginning.
And one thing, too, we're always talking about the different generations on this podcast. This is something that probably dates the movie, because if this movie came out now, they just run a GoFundMe, right? And there'd be no movie. It'd just be Nick Cage checking his phone for updates on, how the GoFundMe was getting to its goal.
Or you'd have something like WikiLeaks or social media, where if there was this real atrocity that was done to these soldiers that were killed on this illegal coverted mission, again, obviously there's military rules about things like that, but if it went as bad as it's sort of implied, I think if this movie took place 15 or 20 years later, when social media is a real thing, you wouldn't necessarily expect the same outcome. It wouldn't be that this is this tight secret and we want this money or we're going to expose this. I think it would be almost the other way around, where at the beginning you would see them exposing this information, and then that would sort of set everything in motion. But again, we're getting away from what the movie actually is as to what it could be or could have been if it was done a little bit differently.
Right. So Ed Harris goes and takes over Alcatraz, right? And kind of, sets up shop there, and he's going to, take these hostages and do all this stuff. And then the FBI, they're talking about his character, and the guy mentions him, and he's like, he's got three purple hearts, 2 silver stars. And I turn to my wife and I go, and a partridge in a pear tree. Just the way that guy just delivered that line, it just struck me as funny. But a couple of characters that I noticed right away at the beginning of the movie, and was Bookman from Seinfeld. I know you're not a big Seinfeld guy, but the librarian in, I want to say it was season 2 or 3, who comes to collect the library fines from Jerry, was one of the FBI guys. And also one of the other guys, I recognize him right away. I turned to my wife, I said, that guy was in Footloose. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? She gets her phone out and she goes on IMDb and she's like, oh my God, you're right. Like, it was, I don't remember his character's name in Footloose. He was one of the secondary guys, but he was kind of one of the tough guys in the group. But anyway, so Sean Connery is the main character because he's the only guy that's ever broken out of Alcatraz. So they recruit him to help break in, right? And that's kind of the premise of the film. Yeah. And I love the scene when they send Nick Cage into the interrogation room to try and cut the deal with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
And he says to him, again, another thing to date the movie, Nick Cage says, you need a haircut unless you're a 20-year-old guitarist from Seattle. And the funny thing is Sean Connery doesn't know what he's talking about because he's been locked up for so many years. And the audience today probably wouldn't know what he's talking about because they're too young to remember the grunge scene. So I thought that was kind of a funny bit there. And then they go to the hotel and Sean Connery's out on the balcony getting his haircut. I don't know if you noticed this, but the skyline of San Francisco was so fake. You could totally tell it was a painting.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, you got to go back and watch it. I was like, look, it's like a painting. Like, you could just tell. It was just so fake looking. I don't know what the heck it was, but
I love that the scene where he gets his haircut and the barber comes. That's one of the ones where they're like, you can't use scissors. With scissors, this man could kill you. And he's like, no scissors? Did they tell Picasso no brushes?
Yeah, because that's that same guy that when Connery like busts out and he runs into him in the elevator, and the guy's like, I never saw anything. Like, don't kill me. I didn't see you throw that guy off the balcony. All I want to know is, did you like your haircut?
Yeah.
And just the way that whole scene is played is another example of how even in 1996, they're just playing homosexuality for laughs.
Yeah.
Like that whole scene, the way they played it. Like, again, it's just, we keep running into these same themes over and over with these older movies. But the other thing I wanted to mention, the car chase. So they chase down the alley, and Sean Connery,
exceptionally gratuitous car chase that really was totally unnecessary, but Michael Bay wanted to race cars through San Francisco.
You could tell.
That one?
The one Sean Connery's got the SUV. I think Nick Cage is driving a Ferrari. And then they're going down the alley, and I turn to my wife and I go, fruit stand. I don't know if you saw it. She had no idea what I was talking about. But if you remember on our pop culture pet peeves episode, literally every movie that has a car chase in it, one of the cars hits a fruit stand, and it happened in the alley. They hit a fruit stand in the middle of this alley. And then at the end of the chase, it's quite an elaborate scene. And then when the trolley car flips over and it's skidding down the street, like it's quite an ending, it hits a fruit stand too. So it was like a double fruit stand.
Yeah.
So that Michael Bay's got.
If you're gonna go big.
Go big, right? Yep. I like the pacing, because then after this huge scene, Sean Connery meets up with his daughter, and I like that scene because Nick Cage sees that's why he escaped. And so he lets him save face with her, because he's like, oh, your dad's working with the FBI on this big case. So, immediately now they've got this bond, and Sean Connery trusts him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they go to Alcatraz, and I like how Sean Connery rolls through the blast furnace and those rotating gears, because he says he memorized the timing for the gears and the fire that comes down.
The completely unnecessary rotating gears with fire. It's still working in a place where they no longer have prisoners, so probably don't need whatever it is that machine is producing.
And it's been like 30 years, and he still memorizes exactly the timing of how to roll through it. Like, okay. Yeah. So I will say this. So at this point, my wife turns to me and she says, well, you know what? You finally got us a good movie to watch.
Good. There you go.
Well, then she promptly fell asleep. She's not a lot of fun to watch.
Did she ever go back and rewatch Pleasantville?
No, she never did. She falls asleep every single movie.
One day when she's more awake, you can have her do the double feature. You can have her watch Pleasantville and The Rock.
Yeah. And then the big another big scene that comes up is when there's that standoff between the FBI and the SEAL team, and
in the shower.
Yeah, and like it's that bloodbath, and only Cage and Connery survive, from the FBI team. And then I think that's where we learn Sean Connery has all of the FBI secrets. Like he knows the truth about the JFK assassination and the Roswell landing and all this. And
it's not until they get captured and they're in the cells, because that's when he's like, "What are you in? What are you in for?" And he goes, "It's a long story." He goes, "Well, we're not going anywhere." But yeah, you get the sense that there's more to it.
The thing that got me was I think Nick Cage says something. Well, I'm going to try my best, and Sean Connery says, "Losers always talk about doing their best, but winners go home and bleep the prom queen." And I'm like, I turn to my wife. I'm like, Sean Connery just said the F word.
Yeah. That's one of the lines we quote around here all the time. Your best. Losers always want, and you do it in your Sean Connery. Your best. Losers always out the best. And it's like, because my wife's family's Scottish, so she could really do it well. And we use that. That's one of the lines we quote all the time. Carla was the prom queen. Then he cocks the weapon.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, not only is there gratuitous language, but the violence in it, because he goes down on the ground and he shoots the guy in the feet. And then like blows his feet off, and then that safe falls on the guy.
Air conditioning thing falls on him.
Like, and then his foot's sticking out and it's twitching. And then
that was so good.
Nick Cage is like, I haven't really been around a lot of corpses. Is that normal? Like, can you make that stop? And Sean Connery says, "What, you mean kill him again?" Like, it just glorifies the violence, you know?
Oh, it totally. It is a product of its time, right? Like This was the mid 90s. Like this was where, like, think about what TV and movies were in the 80s, where you still had a very strong conservative idea about what could be shown on public TV, what could be said on the radio. And then you're starting to come into the 90s and you're getting the start of sort of the it wouldn't be the Gen X, it would be the millennial generation, I suppose, where you're getting a little bit more of that counterculture. You're getting alternative culture. You're getting things like grunge music, which we just talked about, and you're getting, you're pushing boundaries more. You're getting independent filmmaking and people's acceptance of pushing the envelope is going a little farther. And so, of course, artists. Sure, we'll call Mark Bay an artist. I mean, he is. Artists will try to push it ever so much farther than the last guy. And I think that's what we saw in the 90s was this like overabundance of absolute gratuitous violence, this explosions, the shoot 'em ups, the bad language, and it just escalated. And then it got to a point where people just became so desensitized to it. You almost had to go the other way. And then, it's like those over the top explosions and shoot 'em up movies sort of died down, and you got more of like the drama period type pieces. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, this was like right at the peak of what can we do next? Oh, let's have something blow up. Oh, well, we already did that. Let's have two somethings blow up. Oh yeah, I love that. So,
well, and maybe it was just me, but like I felt this movie was actually pretty gory in parts. And like you said, it almost glorifies the violence. And then the thing is, and we've talked about this before, most people from this era, they mention, they point to Tarantino. They say, well, he glorifies violence. He never glorifies violence in his films. Never, because he always shows the consequences of the violence. The famous scene in Reservoir Dogs, when the cop gets his ear cut off, you don't see it. Camera turns away. But you know what you do see? The consequences of it. The guy with his ear missing and talking about his family and how he's bleeding and then he's mangled and all this. But movies like this, they just glorify the violence, I think. And I will say, like, it's a big, splashy Hollywood action movie, but this is not for kids. Like,
no. This is definitely restricted, hard restricted.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Blood and gore and Sean Connery dropping F-bombs like a drunken sailor. Like, the thing is, these kind of movies, they don't exist anymore, do they?
No. I was going to say, I think I don't know, but I would suspect that The Rock did well. I remember seeing the theater. I remember it being a big hit. I remember when it came out on video, it was a huge hit on video. And then what was the next big Michael Bay thing to come out was Armageddon. Well, Armageddon was a PG-13. The violence in there is more like spaceship violence. The bad language is really toned down. I don't think there's any nudity in Armageddon. And I think a large part of that, again, I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing it was a combination of he had already sort of hit his maximum peak with the gratuitous violence and sort of, I got to think was like, well, we got to tone it back down to try and, we can't really go any higher. Let's start to bring it back down. And the other thing is dollars and cents. If there's that much blood and violence and gore and shoot 'em ups and explosions and wanton destruction and bad language, you've got to get a restricted rating. Well, that's going to hurt your box office because you can't have teenagers and young children coming into a restricted movie. If it's PG-13, and you throw Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler in it and Bruce Willis, who everyone loves from Die Hard, of course you can get all your teenagers in it and you're making more money. So I think that's a large part of why these kinds of movies didn't stick around and you don't see them all that often is it comes down to box office. Like look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're the biggest money-making movies of the last 10, 15, 20 years. Well, 10 anyway. They're all rated PG or PG-13. Like they know enough to not make a restricted movie and hurt their box office. And I think that's a lesson that the people who made The Rock learned and went, this made a lot of money, but this probably could have made a lot more money if it had been a little toned down and was a PG-13.
No, and it's a good point because if you look at the box office from 96, The Rock finished fourth. It made $134 million, and which is great, but from a studio perspective, it could have made more because Independence Day was first that year and it made $306 million. So Independence Day was PG and The Rock was R, and even Twister was second and Mission Impossible was third, and both of those were PG movies, but they made a lot more money. So it's a matter of you're going to make money, but how much money do you want to make? If you want to make more, like you said, you need to be PG to get those kind of teenage bums in the seats, right? I have a question for you. There's a scene with, and I always have questions about these movies because I miss stuff. There's a scene where Harris calls on the walkie-talkie. I think it's when the guy gets crushed and his legs twitching. Yeah. And he calls him on the walkie-talkie and no one answers. And he turns and he's like, someone's there. Let's go. I'm wondering, like, how did he know someone was there? Is it just because the guy didn't answer?
I think the idea is that these guys are so hardcore military that they're going to do everything they would need to do, and they would be given instructions. And if your superior officer tells you to do something, you do it. And we've already sort of loosely seen that they have been checking in. Like early at one other point, someone says like, "Oh, they're not. This checkpoint hasn't called in," or maybe that was that part where he says this checkpoint hasn't called in. So I think again, it's the idea that they're disciplined, they're military, and the only reason you would not do what you've been told to do is if there's a problem. And they just shot up all those guys in the basement, and they didn't necessarily know if anybody had survived. So I think being a good leader and being a military guy, he was just like, let's draw this conclusion, if he's wrong, no big deal. But if he's right, get the jump on it as fast as you can. That was always my take on it.
And his instincts are right because Connery and Cage survived, and then they go after him and they jump in this mine cart. And it reminded me of the scene in Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom, yeah, for sure.
With Indian Short Round. But Connery hides in the cart and the bullets can't penetrate it because it's like really, really thick.
Yeah.
But what I didn't understand was, where did he get the gas from to light the guy on fire?
They gave it to him on the helicopter. Everyone else was getting like guns and night vision goggles, and the guy who was like his babysitter, he goes, that's what he said. He goes, you get the waterproof matches and the lighter fluid. And like almost like, you're never going to find a practical use for those things. Those aren't dangerous. Yeah.
Got it. I'm a little dense. I'm a little dense, but
it's like I've said before, Writer's Craft 101. If you talk about a shotgun hanging over the fireplace in Act 1, by Act 3, someone better shoot that shotgun. Well, this was the same thing. They set it up on the airplane. You knew he was going to use it eventually. Here we go. We get a gratuitous death of a guy being burned to death in a fire.
Well, I guess in my defense, I write a lot of notes while I'm watching the movie, so I miss a thing here and there. But the one of the bad guys throws a grenade in the cart, and just the way Nick Cage grabs it and throws it back, it reminded me of Chevy Chase in Spies Like Us when he threw the grenade back at the Russians. I don't know why. It just reminded me of that scene. But then, anyway, so Nick Cage saves Sean Connery's life. Right, because the guy's like choking him out, and so then okay, this is setting this all up. And then I like the scene when Sean Connery and Ed Harris confront each other, and they're both quoting philosophy back and forth. And I really liked Sean Connery's line, and this is not the type of movie where you'd expect decent dialogue, but there was a really good line, and he says, "You don't honor the memory of the fallen with the blood of the living."
Yeah.
I thought it was a great line. And again, I thought the overall premise was kind of weak, but, I guess they had to drive the movie forward with it. But the thing was, my wife, I remember, she turns to me and she's like, well, why doesn't the government just pay them the money? Like, why risk the terror attack? But like I was saying to her, I think it had something to do with the president had a personal policy not to negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah, that's always the standard operating procedure in the U.S.
Yeah, it's what's a long-standing policy of a lot of Western governments, right, when it comes to terrorists or hostage situations. But it's so funny, it was a Michael Bay thing in the movie, when the president is giving his speech, like the deadline's already passed, and the president gives this long speech. It's like, hurry up, people are going to die. Like, stop, shut up, But it turns out it was all a bluff, right? Because Harris redirected the rocket after it was launched. And then great scene with the Mexican standoff, which I love. It's been used in lots of movies before. Like, I remember it was in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly back in '66. And Tarantino, he does it really. He did it in Reservoir Dogs. That was just a couple of years before this one came out. And then John Woo used to use it a lot in the films that he made in Hong Kong before he came to Hollywood. But the Mexican standoff, it never ends well. That's the whole point, right? It's a no-win situation.
Yep.
But then Nick Cage fires the rocket and blasts the bad guy out the window, and then he gets like impaled on the pole again. Just that gratuitous violence and gore.
Like, did we really need that? I'm like, sure. I mean, when I saw it, I went, oh, like it got a reaction out of me, which was that's the point.
That's the intention, right?
You're already going over the top. Well, let's just ratchet it from 10 to 11. Done. Here you go. We're going to impale him on a spike.
The thing for me was, not only was there a lot of violence in this movie, there's a lot of profanity in this movie. Like, I'm hardly a prude, but man, oh man, there was a lot of F-bombs in this movie. Like, it was crazy how much swearing there was in it. But, and then I love the end when, it's kind of all over and Nick Cage tells the FBI that Sean Connery was incinerated by the bomb, which allows Sean Connery to kind of escape from The Rock one last time, you know,
Escape again.
Very metaphoric, right?
Yep.
And then Nick Cage and Vanessa Marcel go to the church in Kansas, and because Sean Connery told them to go there, and they get that tube of microfilm, and it's got all the FBI secrets on it. So it's kind of cool, you know. He's like, you know, hey, guess who killed JFK or whatever. So it was, like I say, it was a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was good. It was kind of mindless. It was kind of forgettable in a lot of ways, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. So it was a good pick.
If you had to give it a score out of 10, what would you give it?
I'd probably give it a 7.
Yeah, I'm a little more than that. I'd say probably a 7.5.
Yep.
Maybe an 8 on a really good day, but I think 7.5. Yeah, that's solid. I mean, again, I hadn't seen it in its entirety in quite some time, a number of years. It's not one that you see on TV that often, but of course, now that we reviewed it, I'm sure I'll see it in the lineup in the next 2 weeks. And I think part of the reason you don't see it on TV often is because of the violence, because of the swears.
Profanity, yeah.
So it's like a channel like AMC or TBS generally doesn't show movies that have, you know, that aren't quote unquote family friendly. Like this would need a lot of editing to make it a little more palatable for a wide audience. So you're limited to certain specialty movie channels where they don't cut things as much, or they can get away with showing some of the violence, but maybe we'll bleep out the swears. So that's probably why you're not seeing this one on TV as often. But no, I enjoy it, and it's one of those rewatchable movies for me. Like I said, I bought it on 2 Medium. I bought it on Laserdisc, which now is, you know, a giant 12-inch coaster since my player doesn't work, and I still have the Criterion DVD. And I can remember when I got this Criterion DVD, I spent the next week going through and watching all the special features, and I think there's 2 audio commentaries on there. I listened to them, not like back to back, but I find with the audio commentaries on most movies, you have to really know the movie and really enjoy the movie so that you can actually watch it again and not hear the dialogue and actually hear the people talking about it and care enough to keep it on for 2 hours. Like, I was surprised. I didn't remember this movie being this long. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's quite long. You're right.
Yeah, I remember because I just split it up over two viewings today. And so I watched for an hour the first time. And then when I came back after dinner, I thought, I probably got about 45 minutes to go. Because I sort of knew what was coming. And then I sat down and watched it. It's about half an hour in. And I was like, okay, well, I'm 90 minutes into this movie now, and there's still a lot to come up. And then I hit the little button on my remote, and it's like, you have 45 minutes to go. Like, holy cow. But no, I enjoyed it. It's not one of these ones that I felt dragged. You know, sometimes you get these movies, you're like, oh my God, when is it going to end? Oh my God, there's 20 minutes to go. This is not that. And I find Michael Bay is pretty good with the pacing. He, again, it's his style, right? It's these fast-paced explosions, shoot 'em up, blow it up. Your hero saves the world kind of movie. Even with Armageddon, which we may have to watch at some point down the future for this podcast. He has these like awesome action sequences where lots happens. But again, much like we've said, he knows how to pace the movie where you have all this go, 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 and then you have a little lull where there's some character development and some dialogue to set up the next thing. And I felt The Rock did that very well, where it really balanced the slower parts with the action scenes, and but not to the point where it slowed it down where you're like, okay, I'm done. So
yeah, and I agree with pretty much everything you said. Like, some of the movies you've nominated, I've kind of thought that. Like, I'm like, when's this going to be over? But this one was actually pretty good. Like, it was entertaining, like I say. It's just kind of forgettable. But anyway.
What did you think about Sean Connery's performance overall?
I thought it was pretty good. I think, he was definitely the right person to cast for this movie. I couldn't imagine anyone else being in the role. I find Nick Cage, like I said, is a bit of a weirdo, and it's interesting that Nick Cage has kind of found himself as being kind of an action kind of guy with this movie, like you said, in Con Air and National Treasure, because he's not what I would think to be like an action star. But I thought Connery was pretty good. He was perfectly cast for this movie.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I had this on my list as one of my favorite Connery movies. Is I thought he was good casting. I thought he clearly was having fun with it. Like, he didn't take it seriously to the point where, you know how sometimes with these movies, like, you have one actor who's taking it super seriously and everyone else is just having a good time with it? That wasn't the case here. Like, he clearly was having a good time with it, as I think most of the performers in this one were. So, no, I really thought he did a good job.
And I think, interestingly, like, if I was working on this film, like, from a script point of view, I wouldn't think that Sean Connery would be my first pick to play that part. But he was perfect for it. Like, I just don't think he would have been my first pick. Like, I wouldn't have thought of him to do that part. But no, he was great for it. So anyway, on that note, let's have some
fun with Caveman.
All right, so we're wrapping up our Sean Connery appreciation. As I mentioned, we did our best performances of Sean Connery, followed up by Time Bandits last week and The Rock this week. Derek, last week you mentioned Sean Connery had like 94 acting credits on his IMDb. And so he's obviously worked with a wide range of co-stars over the years. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to play a game called 1 Degree of Sean Connery.
Okay,
so I'm just going to...
I did this for you on one of the previous shows.
You did a similar thing. Mine's a little bit...
Okay.
I'm going to mention a co-star, and you just mention the title of the movie that featured Sean Connery. So no trick questions. Okay?
I do not know a lot of Sean Connery's early work, so this is going to be a train wreck. So.
I think you're going to do very well.
I do not. I'm guess how many questions you got? 10, 15 questions?
Yeah, about 10 or 11 questions. You're going to do good.
If the over and under is 5, I'm taking the under all day long.
I don't know about that. I mean, there's
all right. Okay.
I'm not going to trick you with anything. Everyone I mentioned has been in a movie with Sean Connery. And
okay.
I was going to start off with Kevin Bacon, to see if Sean Connery was 1 degree of Kevin Bacon.
That they have been in a movie together.
No, they were never in a movie together. Oh,
all right, good. That's one bonus question. Ding ding.
I should mention I'm 4 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul Savage was on my old TV show with me, and Leslie Nielsen worked with Paul Savage in Men with Brooms, and then Leslie Nielsen was with Greg Henry in The Patriot, and Greg Henry worked with Kevin Bacon in Super. So I'm 4 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Just thought to mention that. Anyway, I'm going to mention the co-star. You just tell me the title of the film that they were in with Sean Connery, and they're easy, okay? First one, Alec Baldwin.
Yes. Sorry, you want the name of the movie, right?
Yes, the movie.
Hunt for Red October.
The Hunt for Red October is correct. You just got to name the movie. These are easy. Ursula Andress.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Oh my God, it's Dr. No. She was the first Bond girl. Oh, I thought you would get that one. All right, here's an easy one because I gave it to you last week. Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. That was your number one pick there. That was The Man Who Would Be King.
Very good. Congratulations. See, you got this.
Was that the only movie they were in together?
I believe so.
Okay.
All right. Peter Boyle. Peter Boyle. Which movie did Peter Boyle?
Oh my God.
It was from 1981.
Oh, that doesn't help me. I don't know.
It was in space.
Oh, that was Outlander.
Outland. Close enough.
Outland. Sorry, not the Scottish time travel one.
Yeah, no. Outlanders, yeah.
Okay.
My wife watches that crap.
Yeah, my wife read all the books.
All right. Kim Basinger.
Yeah, she was in the Bond remake. Never Say Never Again.
Very good. See, you're doing okay. Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro and Sean Connery, you say? The Untouchable.
Yes. See,
were they actually in a scene together?
It doesn't matter. They were in the same movie.
Okay,
that's all that matters.
Okay.
Richard Gere.
Oh, that was the stupid Sir Lancelot King Arthur one. That was called the something Nights. The First Night.
Yeah, it was First Night. Very good.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater. It was terrible.
All right, Roy Scheider. What movie did Roy Scheider do with Sean
Jaws?
Connery? I'll give you a hint. It was not Jaws 2. No.
Oh boy. I don't know.
The Russia House.
Sure.
Okay.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Christopher Lambert. Which movie did Christopher Lambert do with Sean Connery?
I don't know.
It was Highlander.
Oh, I was thinking Christopher Plummer. Christopher Lambert.
Right, all right, here's an easy one for you. Ving Rhames.
And Sean Connery?
Yes. You mentioned it the other week.
Jeez. Really?
He's in it with Ving Rhames and also with Catherine Zeta-Jones's butt.
Oh, that's Entrapment.
That is Entrapment, yes.
I got it on Ving Rhames, I swear.
Okay. Dennis Quaid. What movie did he do with Dennis Quaid? Sean Connery, Dennis Quaid.
The Rose one? The something Rose?
It was Dragonheart.
Okay. Oh, yeah, right. He was just the voice in that one, though.
That's right. Uma Thurman. What movie did he do with Uma Thurman? And I'll give you a hint, it was not a Marvel Cinematic Universe film.
No, I don't think Sean Connery was ever in the Marvel Universe.
No, but it's got a similar title.
Thurman. Whew. Was it the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
No, it's The Avengers.
Oh, yes.
Yes, The Avengers, similar to the
that
MCU.
Theater too.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
And the last one, this one's going to be, I want to give you a hard one on the last one, but all these seem to be hard. Albert Finney. What movie did he do with Albert Finney? Albert Finney was the lead role.
Finney from Tom Jones, eh? He was Albert Finney.
That's him.
Yeah.
It was after Tom Jones. It was in 1974.
Yeah, it doesn't help me. I don't know.
Murder on the Orient Express.
Sure. I had no idea Sean Connery was even in that.
Yeah. So there you go. So you got some of them, some of the ones you didn't get.
No, I knew I was not going to do well on that.
Well, I thought you might have done okay. Like the thing that triggered me was when you mentioned that he had like 90 plus credits on his IMDb page. I was like, wow, he did a lot of movies that I didn't think he did that many movies, but.
Well, and that's what I said when we did our top 5 list. You think with that many to pick from, it shouldn't be hard. But then I started thinking, which ones have I seen? And there was a lot that were, I don't want to say they were crap, although some of them probably were.
Some were.
There were some that were not that great. And it's, or he wasn't the star, so I wouldn't call it a quote unquote Sean Connery movie.
Right. But anyway, so that was not bad. You didn't do terrible, Yeah. But so next week, what we're going to do is going to come back and do a topic show. So we'll come back with another top 5 list for next week. And if you want to reach out to Derek, you're going to find him on Twitter at Amaron_DM. And you'll find me on Twitter at CMcBrien. That's IEN. And popgoesyourworld.com is our website with all of our contact information. You can find our email on there. You shoot us an email. And until next show, this is Chris McBrien for Derek Meyer saying, thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.